Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healing Hub podcast. My name is Maria. You can call me Mayo, and I'm going to be your host in this incredible series of podcasts where I'm going to be talking about what I love the most: wellness, alternative therapies, alternative medicine. And today with me, I have Genevieve Godpart. She describes herself as a human, equine, and animal Bowen therapy. Hello, Genevieve.
Hi, Maria.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Really pleased to have you here. No better than you at this moment, and especially here in Dubai, to tell us what is Bowen Technique.
So Bowen therapy is a holistic therapy. The practitioner just uses their fingers and thumbs, and we just do very gentle rolling movements over specific points in the body, and it could be over a muscle, a tendon, a ligament, or a joint. And this just stimulates the nerve receptors which are under the skin and in the fascia and muscle, and sends a message to the brain that to rebalance and normalize any areas of tension, restriction, or dysfunction. One of the key differences with Bowen and other therapies is that we include these 2-minute breaks. So when we do a couple of moves, which we might call a procedure, which is a certain couple of moves combined together for a specific reason, we leave the room for a couple of minutes and just allow the body that time to process and integrate those moves that we've done and allow the body to respond, basically.
So when you say you use your fingers and thumbs, it's like with how you pressure on the body in different points, right?
It's different to acupressure, so we're not just applying pressure to a point. The move is actually a rolling move, so let me demonstrate with my thumbs. You would place your thumbs on a certain point, and almost as if you've glued your fingers or thumbs to the skin, and then you're going to roll that skin over sometimes the belly of the muscle or whatever part of the body you're on, and then apply a small amount more pressure, and then roll that skin back. So it's like we keep that skin that we're touching underneath our fingers, so we're not going over the skin, if you like. We're not sliding across the skin. We're keeping that skin underneath our fingers and drawing that skin over the muscle or the fascia, drawing it back. And just that movement stimulates a couple of different nerve receptors in the skin, some that respond to pressure, some that respond to movement, and the move itself then stimulates those nerve receptors too. So another one of the key points with Bowen therapy is that it works on the fascia. So the fascia is our connective tissue. Without fascia, our body would just collapse on the floor. You know, we think that the skeleton is what holds us together, but it's actually this connective tissue that wraps around all of our organs, our muscles, our bones, our ligaments, our tendons, and it just gives the body structure and stability. And we are so interconnected from head to toe with this. When you see dissections, or you see, if you Google fascia, you'll see they can make a human being out of the fascia, and you can see the whole how a problem with your foot is the fascial line will connect all the way through. So Bowen therapy stimulates that fascia to rehydrate, realign, rebalance. You know, when they say scar tissue, a lot of the time that means that when we have an injury, the body always heads towards stability. So, you know, if you've got an injury, obviously it makes sense you don't want that to be hypermobile because you need it to heal. But the body can overcompensate and lay down these layers of fascia that can stabilize but also then restrict. And then when we have too much restriction, we have lack of blood flow, lack of nutrients, lack of hydration. And this in itself can be the problem. So someone can say, I've got a sore muscle, but it might not actually be the muscle. It might be the fascia that's surrounding it.
So it's like if it would become thicker, like the fascia physically becomes like stronger, or like...
Yeah, I mean, if you imagine fascia like kind of it's like if you're cooking and you cut a chicken and that slimy layer, that's fascia. So it's like glad wrap. All right. And it can kind of just layer down upon itself just to really, like a spider's web, to really strengthen that area. So the Bowen itself can release that fascia because the move will send a signal to the brain, which will send a signal back to realign, rebalance, rehydrate, and release that fascial tension. Fascia is becoming a lot more known now. You know, years ago, doctors the medical community never really gave much thought to fascia. It was something that you cut through to get to the wherever you needed to get to.
Another layer of the body.
And now there's a load of very, very interesting research. If you Google fascia, you can see, huge amounts of literature being written on it. And there's even amazing things on YouTube where they've put tiny cameras into the body and sort of navigated the fascia and seen what it looks like on a microscopic level. So it's so important for our body. I mean, even secretes hormones. It does a huge amount of functions. So the Bowen has a huge impact on fascia. And so some people will hear of Bowen just through fascia itself, just think it's another kind of fascial release. So that's
then if it's becoming more popular, the fascia word, then Bowen might also increase through that channel as well, right?
Yeah.
Through that source.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Excellent.
So Tom Bowen was way ahead of his time because
Tom Bowen, the one who
the founder
founded,
of Bowen therapy.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, he understood the importance of fascia, decades and decades before its relevance now. He understood the importance of the parasympathetic and the holistic sort of healing of Bowen. All of these things that now we're kind of really catching up with. We went through decades, sort of think about the 80s, it was sort of celebrated not to sleep. Margaret Thatcher had 4 hours of sleep, famously.
Exactly.
It was a good thing not to sleep. It was a good thing, to keep
to
working
enjoy
and
suppress emotions, keep going,
Yeah.
taking something to be happy. Yeah.
and now it's like we've done a 180, and every podcast you watch about health is all about sleeping, is about stress, anxiety, trauma. So I think that just Tom Bowen was way ahead of his time, basically, and that's why Bowen is just going to be more and more pertinent these days as people discover the importance of holistic health and looking at the picture as a whole, the body as a whole. I think people will be more interested in Bowen, and we'll see much more of a. I think in countries like Australia, Bowen is already very well known and very well established.
Yes.
But in the rest of the world, where it's not, there's parts of the world where, like the Middle East, where it's not as established, I think people are going to be more and more drawn to it once they understand what it's all about.
For sure. From the Healing Hub, we will definitely keep pushing for people to know more about Bowen. What is it based on? On the meridians of the body or the muscles itself? Or how does it work with the body in general?
Well, the guy that sort of created Bowen therapy, he was actually just, but he was a layman, so he wasn't a trained medical practitioner, but he was obsessed with medicines from the Far East, so shiatsu, acupuncture, acupressure. So he had a huge grounding in that, and he would read everything and anything he could get his hands on in that. But he actually identified as an osteopath, so he was also very interested in that area as well. So you see acupuncturists will recognise, because we have a lot of acupuncturists who've then gone on to study Bowen and osteopaths and chiropractors. There's a lot of, Bowen therapists tend to have a huge diverse background. So acupuncturists will say that they recognise the positioning of the moves because it will correlate very much with positioning of acupoints and positions that they would put needles in for certain conditions that we are using the same points for whatever we are treating. And so I think it probably has more in common with that kind of branch of alternative medicine. And a lot of if we're doing certain procedures for certain areas of the body, we'll see the moves are done within that meridian. So there's a lot of crossover between the two disciplines, but it's not any one thing. I think it's a combination. It's a very and it's very unique. It's nothing. There's nothing really like it.
We'll get back into that, but I actually forgot to ask you a very important question.
Sure.
Who are you, Genevieve? Who are you?
So I'm born in London, and I've been living in the UAE for sort of probably 12 and a half years now. I came in 2012. My background was always with horses, so I've been riding since I was 12. I did my school and I did my A-levels, and I took a gap year. I was going to go to uni, and I did my A-levels in biology, chemistry, so I always had a kind of interest.
Connected to the body, right? To the science and everything.
And I took a year out, and I ended up in the racing industry. I went to we have a college at home called the British Racing School, and I thought this would be an adventure for a year, and here I am. Still
in the racing industry, right?
20-something odd years later, still in the industry. But when I did it, I've travelled the world doing that job, and I've loved it. But I always knew it's not a job that you can do forever because, you know, it's quite dangerous and quite physical. And I always had an interest in therapies because I would be around, I'd see physiotherapists visiting the stable and things, and it fascinated me. And riding horses, athletic horses, you know, as a rider when there's a problem, and it's quite frustrating when you can't help the horse, you know, you're limited in your capacity. So I always wanted to explore that. And I happened to be working in Australia for, you know, Godolphin is a big sports team here for
Yes,
Sheikh Mohammed.
absolutely.
So he bought a huge operation out in Australia, and I was one of the first riders to go over there and work over there for that operation. So I was over there in 2008 to 2011, I think. And whilst I was there, Bowen actually originates from Australia.
Yes.
So I came across it there because there was a segment on the news that said, do you know what the most successful alternative therapy in Australia is? And I thought I'd tried all of them because I'd fallen off so many horses and, you know, had so many aches and pains. So I'd done the massage, the osteo, the physio. And so they said, by the way, it's none of those things. It's none. It's not acupuncture. It's not physiotherapy. So I thought I'll have to watch this and do it. And so I watched this segment, and it was about Bowen therapy. And then because Australia has healthcare schemes and similar to here, you know, the sort of health reimbursement basis, they kind of had statistics on what was the most effective. So that's how they knew that Bowen therapy was actually the most effective. So anyway, I Googled Bowen therapy near where I was, and I visited a practitioner, and I was really impressed, and I was really intrigued. So she said to me when we were chatting afterwards, oh, you know, you can actually learn this to treat horses. And so that I Googled that, but I found it was quite intense in terms of the workload of what I'd need to do. And I was doing a very full-on job at that point. It was sort of 7 days a week, 6 days a week.
Yeah, of course.
So I put it on the back burner. I eventually came back to the UK, spent a year and a half there, and then moved to Dubai. And when I was in Dubai, I was very lucky that I had a job where I was riding in the mornings and then
very early morning,
yeah,
right?
very early, but pretty much had the day at my leisure.
Exactly.
So I made the most of that for a couple of years, you know, just enjoyed the city. But I thought I must put this time to use. You know, I'm a time millionaire at the moment. I need to use this in a constructive way. So I Googled it again. I found that there was courses in the UK for equine. So initially my aim was just to treat horses. I contacted the therapist, the teacher in the UK, and asked her, would I be able to study remotely? So would I be able to come back and forth for the course? And she said, yeah, sure, but you know, you need to do your human first. And I was thinking, I don't want to do people. I don't want to touch people. You know, my mother's a nurse, and I always felt like that's something it wasn't within me. You know, I didn't feel a calling to that.
Yeah.
But I thought I'll do it. I'll tick the box, and then I'll do the equine. So, and then I looked everywhere. There was I couldn't do the human one in England. They said they wouldn't accommodate me. It wasn't practical because they would do these 2-day seminars, and I wasn't allowed to travel that frequently with my job. And then just as fate would have it, there was there's a lady in Dubai called Atusa Hariri, and she had been one of the only practitioners here, and she's a very determined lady.
She's still here?
She's still here.
Okay.
And she really wanted to promote this therapy. She'd found it had changed her life and people that she'd treated, and she felt like the Middle East we hadn't got a presence here.
Yeah.
So she is someone that gets things done, and she arranged a course. And literally, as I was looking, because I was following her page, she said there's going to be the first ever course in the Middle East for Bowen therapy. And so does anybody want to learn? So I thought, well, this must be a sign.
Yes. It is like this always, right?
Yeah. You feel like, because I was still on the fence, like, you know, is this something I should do? But that was like, well, I have to really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I signed up and I did that course, and we were very fortunate because we had some of the best teachers from the UK. Every one at a time would come over and teach us, like we call it, a couple of modules or a module. So instead of having one teacher for the duration, we had a different one, which is, I think, a much better.
Very good, because you hear from different approaches, different words, different stories, right? So that it can really inspire you.
Absolutely, yeah. So very lucky in that regard. And I did it, and then I started to do my case studies, and I started to really enjoy it. You know, first of all, I was a bit, apprehensive.
With humans.
With people,
Yes.
yeah. I really enjoyed it, yeah. And it surprised me. And just getting good results is super rewarding, you know, when you're helping people who are in pain or who are struggling, you know, who's not going to like that, I think. So, it really, straight away I started to enjoy it. And so I started to think, oh, maybe I'll do this. Even when I do the equine, I'll do this as well.
Exactly. This is something I find extremely interesting, that all the practitioners for whatever practice, the story of how the practice came into their life, right? Some of us, like me, it came through a breakthrough in life. Others just because they want to really, improve, or they are curious about some part of their career, of their life. In that case, your motive, the original motive, was to work, to do something else for the horses, right?
Yeah.
And then you end up working as well with people. Something similar happened to me. It was I was actually I started doing Reiki or energy healing for people, but then my motive was to actually work with horses as well. So I do the equine energy healing, but at the end I went back to the humans again.
Yeah.
So it is interesting how everything happens, and as well all these signals that come to you, like, again, you say you went to Australia at some point, and then you connected to this therapy, but you left it there. And then at some point when it really is the right moment to do so, then it comes to you. And there are these signals or these, synchronicities that happen around you that you are like, okay, sure, I should do it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's very important that everybody, when they feel that they are passionate or that they feel curiosity for something, and then there are these synchronicities, that you really listen to them, because many of us are just like, oh wow, well, yeah, this is just a coincidence, right? But what if it's not a coincidence, but it's actually meant to be there for you? Is another wake-up call, is another, hey, you should do that, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I think I also try to think of it as like, what have you got to lose? Okay, there's a small financial investment at the beginning, and if you're not going to like it, you can leave it. But I feel like you should always give these things a try and see where they lead, and that's what I thought. Yeah, I did.
So, in easy words, what is Bowen? How can people understand? Is it a body? So, of course, it's body manipulation in this case. But how would you describe it to somebody who doesn't know about alternative therapies or body physiognomics?
Well, the principle is it's a holistic therapy, so that means it treats the body as a whole.
Yeah.
So we don't always view things as in Western medicine. I'm not knocking Western medicine, because I'll always say to somebody, if you've got a condition, have you checked with your doctor first?
Absolutely.
But Western medicine tends to try to treat the symptom, and often doesn't get to the root cause. And so let's take an example of someone's got stomach problems, IBS, or Crohn's or GERD or any of those issues. They might give them things to calm the stomach down, medication. But as we know, stomach is very much related to the stress and to anxiety and to our sympathetic nervous system. So we have in Bowen lots of procedures, we call them, that will specifically target the stomach, but we're treating the body as a whole. And one of the key things Bowen does is it takes the body from that. We have several branches of the central nervous system, and the central nervous system means the brain and all the nerves that connect to it.
Yeah.
So one is sympathetic, which is, people more commonly know that as fight or flight. So when we're in an emergency, our heart rate increases, circulation to the major muscle groups
The survival.
Exactly. It's preparing
brain.
our body to fight for its life or to run away.
Yeah.
And then we have the parasympathetic, which is where we rest, relax, digest, and repair. So, in our primitive existence, when we were hunter-gatherers and we take most animals in the wild, you'd only really be sympathetic in fight or flight in an emergency, when you've got a predator chasing you, there's a threat, a fire, or there's something of that nature, and most of the time we'd be in parasympathetic. But our brain doesn't know the difference between a saber-toothed tiger approaching us to attack us, or
a boss at work.
A boss at work, yeah.
I say this in all my horse-guided empowerment sessions. Yeah. I go back to the cavern times, where the people used to live in caverns, or like we were nomads and we were just going around, and the example I always give as well is like a woman would give birth and she would rest until she's healed completely. Now here is a woman gives birth, and after 45 days, if you're lucky, you need to, well, in some countries 3 months or whatever, you need to go back to your work or grieving or anything physical and emotional, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so exactly the sympathetic and parasympathetic system you were talking about.
Yeah, so we often get stuck into that fight or flight, like you said, from a boss, from paying a bill, from driving in traffic to our job, and these things can stack up as well. And our body just stops going back into parasympathetic. And if we're not going into parasympathetic and all our resources are going to survival, we don't get the resources going into healing and repairing. So people end up with these chronic conditions and they don't understand why. They say, I've got terrible indigestion, I've got terrible headaches, I can't sleep at night. That's another major one. Skin problems.
Yeah.
The list is endless. And they said, I've been to the doctor and I just don't understand. So Bowen treats the whole body, and even the first two moves, we're switching the body out of fight or flight and putting them back into the parasympathetic. So first two moves are on the lumbar spine, and it's like a switch, not always, I won't say every single person every single time, but especially once you've had a session or two, a lot of people just fall asleep after those first two moves, because you're it's like you've switched the body off, you kind of, and the body's gone, finally I can just
well, I did
repair.
Experience one session with you. With you, it was some time ago. I really need to come back again. And I totally loved it. So again, I like to try different therapies, obviously, and I did really, when I found you, of course, I connected with you through the horses, but then I think it's very important, as you then knew as well, that what's happening to me in my body, so that then I can understand better as well how we can help horses. Well, I never wanted to study Bowen until now. I'm so happy with what I'm doing, and I'm very grateful that you are doing this. But I remember being on the massage table and completely switching off.
Yeah.
I remember that at some point I just really switch off, and it's what happens as well in the sessions that I do of energy healing, where people really switches off. But again, I believe maybe with Bowen it's easier to switch off because you are doing something, no? At the end of the day, you are moving something in the body, whereas with energy healing, we are as well, but it's less tangible. We are working with the energy around of the body. So I feel that with Bowen, it was easier to switch off rather than with Reiki. People stay a little bit more in their mind.
Yes,
it takes a bit longer to switch off, to really let go. Even sometimes it's a couple of sessions before they actually start enjoying, the healing to learn how to switch off. Okay, interesting. So in terms of Bowen, you mentioned that you studied with the UK and then you did courses here in Dubai, but tell me a little bit more about it, like where people can learn it, what a real facilitator or which courses they supposed to do, or how many years did you study, so that people understand that this is not just like a 2 weeks course, you really had to go through a lot of things of anatomy, science, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So so the lady I discussed earlier, Atusa, she still runs courses in the UAE. She tends to do one a year. So the course will comprise of, I'm pretty sure it's 2 days at a time. I'm thinking, is it 2 or 4? But I think we did 2 days at a time. The tutor flies out here. You do an in-depth 2 days. So you're learning specific, like I said, these called procedures.
Procedures.
And it's almost like learning a dance. I do dancing, so I sort of feel like it's similar. It's like learning the choreography. You're learning the sequence. You're learning how to do it, the mechanics of it, and you're also then learning why you're doing it and what you're doing it for. And so you do these steps. It depends how frequently, basically, you do these modules. So if you're in the UK, for example, or Australia, you could do it. You could do it every 2 months. You could do it every 4 months. You could space it out as much as you want. I think over here she tends to do it every couple of months. The tutor will come out. So so eventually you get to module 7, and when you've done module 7, you've completed your sort of not lowest, but your initial levels of Bowens. You can call yourself a practitioner.
And then could take you 7 months or 1 year, or
so it depends on, like I said, how frequently you do these modules. And when you get to the end, there's an examination. So you're doing a written examination on all of these procedures and why and how you do them. And there's lots of sort of questions relating.
And then practical cases.
And then practical, where they're assessing you. And you have to be able to do all of your procedures that you've learned from memory. So no referring to the book. You have to memorize it.
Yeah.
So that would be your initial, and then you're a Bowen therapist. But then in order to get your qualification certified, you need to do a first aid certificate, and you also need to do anatomy and physiology certificate. And that was actually quite surprising because like I said, I did do biology A level, so I thought I didn't know it would be as intense as it was. The I don't want to put anyone off because it's very achievable, but I was impressed with how thorough that qualification was, because it's a specific one they ask you to do, and it's an online one, and it's excellent. You know, it was a really good grounding, and it covers every part of the human anatomy.
But that's deep. I mean, if you hadn't studied anything to do with the body, it's completely new, right?
Yeah. For people that haven't done that before, but it's an excellently devised course, and as it's online, you know, you're constantly being tested on everything you've learned step by step. So I was really impressed.
And I think it's very important. One thing I really like lately in the past few years, I'm really drawn into neuroscience and again, everything, all the science that happens in our body when we are healing, right? There are chemicals everywhere changing, proteins transforming in different ways depending on how you feel on what you are doing. And I find this super fascinating till the point that I'm like, okay, I want to study neuroscience, but I'm like a bit afraid because I never wanted to be more into the science part. I'm more of an artistic person. Even though like I love structures and business as well, but it's a bit like I'm not sure if I should, but it's encouraging to hear you. Also, my mom studied traditional Chinese medicine when she was in her early 40s or late 40s, and that was very impressive because I was young and I was seeing her. She did a 5-year degree. And she went through everything. So I remember her having as well the body figurine with the meridians and with everything. And she took her time, she did it. And she comes from sports. She comes from, a different type of science. But everybody can do. If you just set yourself into something. And I think a very important factor is the passion and the feeling that is right what you're doing, the motivation, right?
Exactly. It's wanting to have that good foundation, because I don't want to feel like a fraud. You know, someone is coming to me with an injury or an ailment, then you need to be able to understand why and how. And I'm not in any way saying that I'm equivalent to a doctor. I wouldn't ever claim that, but it's at least, you know, a good grounding in those. And also we studied pathology, so we would study every kind of, not every single, but, you know, a huge range of conditions. So someone comes to you with Graves' disease or
and you know what it is, at least
you know what it is, because, you know, if most of us go through life kind of blissfully unaware of all of these health issues that are around, and, you know, a lot of people are struggling with. So you need to know those things when people come to you. You can't be Googling on your phone, what's this?
And I think it's very important, and many practitioners in the holistic world, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but many of them, they don't have this scientific foundation, or they don't know about the pathologist. I recently as well had a case of somebody asking for help to do an equine, more hippotherapy session with a lady that was paralyzed, a girl that was paralyzed. But I didn't feel I wanted to do it because I don't know exactly where she has pain in her body, what is happening to her. It didn't feel right, you know. So I think it's very important as well to know the limitations, and then as more information as you have, the better it will be. I totally believe so. Even though sometimes you don't need, if you're going to go for a meditation, if you're going to go for yoga, you know, if you go to something more, I don't know, more tangible, let's say, meditation is not really tangible, but I mean, something that is more generic, let's say, right? That it doesn't really tap deep. per se in a first session, even though sometimes there are transformative stories from one session. Yeah, in that case, you don't really need that much knowledge, but as much as you have, the better it is. I find this is where I am now, actually, in my holistic career. I really want to know more about everything, even though if it's a lot of information.
And I think it's a constant learning process, isn't it? You're constantly, even if you've done your foundational education, I'm very interested in health, and so I'm always learning and always reading articles or journals or any new research. It's just fascinating. The human body is fascinating. So
absolutely. And I feel that now more and more we are studying more the parasympathetic system. So this is where all this neuroscience now is everywhere. You hear everything, neuroscience. I feel that the world is shifting towards that. Comes as well from the COVID times, where people decided to slow down, to listen a little bit more. Some, they didn't have they had to stop because there was nothing to do, and I'm sure that was very shocking for many people. But then suddenly they healed from things that were coming from stress or from environments at work or anything, and without noticing, they actually allowed themselves to breathe and healed. And that, I think, shifted a lot. And I feel that now people that are not in this world are accessible. They have access to more information. So I love that. So how does a Bowen session look like? What happens?
Just before I just wanted to get back to the point about the qualifications.
Yes,
is it all right?
Of course.
So when you've done just for people out there who are interested in studying, once you've done your initial stage, your module 7, and you've qualified, you then have additional levels that you can achieve. So you've got module 8, they're called modules. So module 8, module 9 and 10, module 11 and 12, and the modules 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 are called the masters. So Masters 1 and Masters 2, or SP1, SP2.
Were you specialized in something specific, or just like more master level?
It's kind of just more procedures. So basically more tools in your toolkit. So instead of having one procedure for the stomach or two, you've suddenly got 15. So you're learning more and more as you go.
How do you know which procedure you want to use for each person? It also goes a bit with how you feel, how their body is reacting in the session.
Yeah, you kind of. I mean. You kind of just build up that intuition as well, but I send people in advance quite a comprehensive client form, so they're telling me, because people just want to turn up and say my back hurts, but I will ask them, how is your sleep, how is your digestion,
things that they don't even connect that it might be the cause, right?
Previous surgeries, previous illnesses, any other conditions they're suffering from. Sometimes they might have had a knee problem 5 years ago, and they've now got a sore shoulder, and they've not connected that, we have this fascia that's, that we're misaligned and things, that this knee can throw out this shoulder, and they don't make that connection. So, I'll treat the shoulder, but I might also treat the knee. So, it's building that whole picture of somebody's health and history, and then just using your common sense and intuition, whatever you want to call it, and just sort of going through it, and then assessing it each week. How do you feel? What some people are very in tune with their body, so they'll immediately say, I felt that that particular thing. Other people not so much, and that's fine as well, but you can see the results. So
I know what you mean, like other people not so much. For us that practice these alternative holistic therapies, it's a bit of a thing sometimes when you have a client that comes and is a bit skeptic, and maybe they had a friend that actually came and did a session and it worked, or they come like that and then they leave and they don't tell you anything. You don't feel, because I know Bowen, same like energy healing, we don't really talk much, you don't have to tell me. I mean, of course you need to tell me how you feel, but you don't have to tell me anything of what's going on in your body or in your mind mainly. So when these kind of sessions finish, you feel a bit like, okay, I don't know. Sometimes you can even question yourself as a therapist. I'm like, maybe, I don't know, But then at some point you need to learn that everything it happens in the right way. And even if they don't notice it, there are so many layers to peel off, you know, until we heal, until they really let go and allow the body to relax and heal. So yeah, I think we all have this moment sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I think I was the biggest skeptic when I actually first had Bowen, because when I laid there and this lady's just doing these tiny moves on my body, and I really love deep tissue massage.
Yeah. You were like, what is she doing?
And I was like, oh, this is a load of rubbish. Like, I'll be honest, I wasn't like all in from the beginning.
What convinced you from your experience, like from you feeling it?
I think because I woke up the next day feeling a lot better, and
Okay.
so I was like, oh, there's something to this.
Yeah, exactly.
But even when I was learning, you'd hear these amazing stories from these tutors, and they would tell you, just incredible stories of results. And to them, it was every day. Like, it was normal. They were kind of saying, oh, I had this lady who's, struggling for years with jaw pain or with infertility or whatever it was, or a guy, and, and there'd be like miraculous stories. And I would be thinking, no, I can't. This, I was into it, but I was like, I didn't know the level that it, the levels of what it can achieve. So I am somebody that have to see it to believe it. Okay. So every case study, I'd kind of follow up and say, how are you feeling today? And that, a lot of them would kind of come back and say, oh my God, this feels great, or that feels great. And I'd sort of be going, really? Really? I did that, because that's the other thing as well, you're
reassuring.
You can't believe that you can make that change.
Absolutely.
And so that was an interesting thing for me.
And that reinforced as well your practice, then your confidence as a practitioner, and then again you learn to let go. I always say, like, if a client comes and they leave and it feels that nothing happened, it's because they have to still grow and learn in this part of life, of their mind and body, and I'm sure this session actually did something to them, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas it's positive, well, for sure it's positive. We know it's positive at, at some level, but like at least they have tried, and that's already a very big step. So again, if somebody wants to try Bowen, then you will send them a form, and then they will come. And how does it look? How long does a session last?
It's usually about an hour. So on the first session, we probably spend a bit more time talking in advance. So I'll have written bullet points on anything in that form that's sort of cropped up. And then I'll discuss with them, so say you've had that previous shoulder injury. When did that occur? Mm-hmm. Is it resolved? Do you still suffer with pain? You sleep badly. Why do you think that is? Do you go to sleep and wake up, or do you struggle to go to sleep? So I'll go through everything. And then we'll discuss what their main concern is. And then I'll discuss the therapy, kind of explain what to expect. Because, if you just lead someone into the room and do these very gentle moves and walk out the door and shut the door, they're going to think, where's she gone? I do send people a video in advance, which is a really great video.
That's good.
There was a documentary made maybe 2 years ago, and I'd recommend anyone to watch it. It's called
that in one video they know.
Yeah, well, the documentary is called These Two Hands, and it was an independent film. It won a lot of awards. So they've done some amazing promotional work, and one of them is this great video that's like a little synopsis of Bowen. Okay. So I tend to send that in advance to give them a bit of an idea.
We can keep it in all the bio, the information of the video, so you can have a look, for whoever is interested on coming on a session.
So I send that, and I send a little bit of aftercare information, etc. So I discuss what we'll do. You're going to start on your tummy. Halfway through, we'll turn you over. I talk about the breaks, so they understand when I leave the room where I am. I tell them that I won't be talking to them because I want them to go into that parasympathetic. So if we're chatting, not going to happen. I discuss some of the reactions they might feel. Most people don't necessarily feel responses in the body, but some people do. They might feel pins and needles or tingling or numbness or heat. Yeah. So I let them know if they feel that. Let me know, because I might need them to wait a little bit longer till that's subsided, because I don't want to interrupt it. Mm-hmm. And then basically ask them if they've got any questions for me. And then we start. So the nice thing about Bowen is you don't have to remove your clothing. We always advise just wear something light,
comfortable.
Something comfortable and light that I can work through. So ideally not jeans or like a really thick top. But and some people bring a change of clothes. They might bring some shorts and t-shirt. But yeah, you don't need to strip off. And then they start on their tummy. I usually cover the person with towels so they feel bit more cozy, and then start the session. So yeah, and then the session itself might take 40 minutes, something like that.
With the breaks that you take as well.
Yeah.
So the body is processing and moving, energy around to heal.
Yeah. I mean, some people fall asleep immediately. Other people are wide awake all the way through. And, personally, because I receive Bowen, I do a swap with a friend of mine who's a practitioner.
Ah, that's great.
So I try to have it very regularly. And there'll be weeks where I'll have it and be asleep immediately. And there's weeks where I'm not asleep. So it's also, you can't say to somebody, this is how you feel.
No, absolutely. Every session is completely different.
Yeah.
When you don't sleep, you think it's because you are more in your mind?
Not necessarily. Maybe it just depends on my body that week. If I'm tired or if my body really needs it, I'll sleep. Other times I'm just quite relaxed. It's not that my mind is busy. It's just that I didn't sleep. But whatever, I always find it relaxing. That's the key thing.
So there is one thing I've been asked many times. It's like, okay, but in the energy healing session, like if do I go in a state of like I am not conscious, I don't know what's happening? I think with Bowen, as you say, like switching off the sympathetic brain might be a bit scary for some people. So what would you tell to these people? Like,
I think some people come a little bit anxious about what they should do, how they should participate. And I just tend to say, just don't overthink it. Just you don't. I'm not going to say to you try and meditate, because the worst thing when someone says try to empty your mind is you have a million thoughts come into your head. So just try not to. The more stressed you are about what you should feel,
absolutely,
the harder it is.
So just to let go.
Just let go and just go with the flow.
Trust the process.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So talking about transformative stories, I mean stories that touch. You studied a lot of cases when you were studying Bowen, but tell us a couple of cases that you have helped people actually really heal.
There's so many actually, so it's hard to choose. I mean, I'm not saying every single case is a miracle, but you have those standout moments quite frequently. But a really touching case recently, I had a guy who's from the UAE come to me, and like when he sat in front of me, I could see he seemed like his spirit was broken. He'd been in chronic pain for years with jaw, TMJ, which is, for anyone that doesn't know, temporal mandible joint. And it's actually people don't understand how important this small hinge joint here in our jaw is for our health. And a lot of people suffer with problems with this area. So he'd had this jaw pain for a long time.
That caused him headaches, severe headaches, neck problem.
Severe headaches, severe scalp pain. So he felt like his scalp was burning all of the time, and the pain was coming from his scalp, both sides, more one side than the other, all the way through his jaw, all the way down here. And he was suffering depression, and he was suffering basically that feeling of hopelessness and helplessness, because he'd been to every practitioner and nothing had worked. And he was seeing his life just diminish in front of him. Life was not fun for this poor man. He was, it's
in pain.
And we're very blessed, those of us who don't suffer chronic pain.
Yeah,
because that is probably the worst thing.
The worst.
And he was kind of there just as a last resort. He'd just seen an Instagram post, and he just said, I thought, why not? So,
why not? Of course.
But he was there with a very low expectation. He just said, well, let's try. And I knew that I'd be able to help him. I had this feeling, and also, the TMJ work in Bowen is superb. So I said to him straight away, I really think you'll be all right. And
so you were like, yes, I love this case because I know Bowen works well for that, and
I was already excited.
Yeah.
So the first session you tend to do more of a body balance. So you treat the whole body, but the TMJ procedure is quite a powerful procedure. So you don't often do it within the first session, because you need
to calm the body, right?
Exactly, yeah. And you want to see how they respond. So I did a bit of a body balance and did some work on his head, and said to him, I'll see you again in, I don't know if we said 5 days, 7 days, whatever it was. And so the next day I messaged him and said, how are you feeling? And he was just ecstatic. He's like, the pain there's a big reduction in the pain. I slept better. Everything had got better.
So there was some hope.
Yeah, so that was
hope.
it. He had some hope, and he said, I can't wait for the next session. So we did the next session, and I did his jaw. And again, after the jaw work, it was a drastic improvement. And he came again, several times, and we pretty much just got rid of all of the pain that he was suffering.
That's incredible.
It more or less finished. So he continued to come for maintenance, just because he also realised the benefit it was to his mental health, his physical health, his well-being. And so he was just completely converted to Bowen.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping people.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just a privilege, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think you mentioned now something very interesting, which I feel that conventional medicine doesn't have that much this approach, whereas holistic therapies are also maintenance, right? So like the traditional Chinese medicine, the doctors, they say like, don't come when you are suffering and you are sick. Like you come to maintain your body so that we avoid these moments of crisis, whereas it's like mental or physical. So I think all the energetic work and Bowen would work really well to really balancing the little parts that are going out of place, right?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, that's what, people always say to me, how often should I come? And I say to them, well, once we've got you in a good place, then it's entirely up to you. But if you could come once a month, or even, I have those people that will come once a week. I have people that come once a month, and I have people that will call me 4 months down the line, 6 months down the line, and just say, I feel like I need a top up. I feel like I need a session.
You also discuss about fertility, and I remember I sent you a client a couple of years ago.
Okay, yeah.
She's now out of the country and has 2 kids.
Great.
She was suffering from infertility, and I did some energy work with her. But again, for me as a energy worker, practitioner, I felt that there was something else more physical that she would do, because again it was out of my knowledge. So that's why I always as well recommend, of course, you have gone to your doctor, have you checked all your things, cool, you are here with me, but now let me send you to someone who I feel will help you better. So I remember she went to you, and the truth is that after a couple of months she got pregnant.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, she
That's
did.
Great news. If you tell me her name, then I'd remember, I'm sure.
Yes.
But that's brilliant.
She did get pregnant, and she last year had the second baby.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's lovely to hear.
Yes. But infertility is something that it happens a lot. And I believe, of course, there are a lot of physical problems, but women tend to have all this mental stress when they cannot get pregnant because of, how we are supposed to be women, or we have to get married, we have to have kids, even though sometimes you are not feeling it. And many women suffer from that. So you do this work as well.
Yeah. So, there's many Bowen babies around the world. So
that's good.
It's again, a lot of people come to it as they've tried other things, and they suddenly hear about Bowen. And I had a lovely lady called Emmeline, I always use her as one of my examples. She came to me with anxiety and stress, so she was having panic attacks. Again, Bowen's amazing for that, for the obvious reason it takes you out of that fight or flight. So I treated her for that, and that resolved, and she felt great. And then she said, I saw on your Instagram that Bowen helps with fertility. And she said, I've actually been trying for quite a while to have a baby, and we're not getting anywhere. Do you think it can help? And I said, yeah, well, why not? We've kind of balanced your body. So next week I'll do the fertility protocol. Is actually you do it just before the lady's cycle starts. So I said, we'll time it with your cycle. We'll do the protocol. So we did. And she literally fell pregnant that month. Wow. So
that's amazing.
She won. Then eventually she comes back, here and there now for maintenance. But then she was trying to have a second baby, and once again just struggling. So came back, bang. She was pregnant again. So I can say that I've got a woman pregnant, and
that's good.
But it happens. It happens quite frequently with Bowen, and I think we can treat many things to do with infertility. So it's great for hormones. It's great for ovarian cysts, for fibroids, for all of those physical reasons. But also, stress is a key thing, and women are not, or any animal, any mammal is not going to reproduce when the body feels like it's in an emergency state.
Yes, absolutely.
Because why would it bring a life form that can't sustain?
Yes.
So that's the problem. And then the more people try to get pregnant and they're not getting pregnant, the more stressed they become.
Yes.
And it's this, this vicious circle. So, a lot of the time, all women need really is just to have this break in that cycle, get them out of that fight or flight, let the body do what it needs to do.
Yeah.
And
I wish they understood better, that there was more awareness about this, what you just mentioned, that the body is so wise that if you are pregnant and you're really feeling really like crap in your body and mind, you may lose this baby, all these miscarriages that happens is because the body doesn't feel ready for it, right?
Yeah.
And instead of taking it like as a stab, as a like, oh my God, I'm not woman enough, or I cannot fulfill, the whatever it is that's going on in your mind, you just trust that this happens for a reason, and it's actually not like a reason of this, how the stars are aligned or whatever. It's just your physical body telling you that I don't think I cannot. I feel in stress. I feel in danger. I cannot have a baby, right?
Yeah. Your body's actually doing the right thing. It's keeping you safe. It's saying you can't. You're not in a safe space to have a baby right now. So it's very natural. And I think once women understand that, then it's quite empowering, because then they realize there's things they can do.
Yeah.
And such as Bowen, meditation, yoga. There's fertility yoga out there. I had a client of mine was a fertility yoga specialist. She's actually just moved back to Australia. But yeah, there's steps you can take. And that's a key thing when people know that there's things that they can do for themselves, rather than go to the doctor, check their hormones, think, oh my God, this hormone is low, and maybe I'm not ever going to have a child. When you can do things to assist fertility, then it's positive, and it's a lot more impactful, I think.
Yeah, and again, switching off the sympathetic brain means being in the now, being just here. So you are not in the past, you are not in the future. You're just here, feeling your body, right? Really allowing just to be here. So there's nothing else at that moment. The power of the now. Of course, when you are doing a Bowen session, you are not that present like when you would do a session with the horses, with the horse guided empowerment that I do. You are awake, obviously. But it's all about really being very present, really being here, so that again, you are not in the past, so you are not suffering from depression, and you are not in the future. You are not suffering from anxiety, from like, what's going to happen. You are just here, and you are just grateful and feeling happy because you are alive, you are breathing, so that you can allow things to happen. Right?
But I know some people really struggle with, the being in the now and not. I'm one of those people. I'm constantly I don't particularly have anxiety, but I have a busy head, I think.
Yeah.
I find meditation quite challenging, but I think that the great thing about Bowen is that you don't need to, there's no pressure on you. Your body will unconsciously do those things.
Yeah.
Our body's doing so many processes every day unconsciously. We're digesting,
absolutely.
We're regulating, we're doing all these things that we just take for granted. And it has the capacity to do these things. We just need to sometimes give it a bit more of a push and a bit more assistance. But that's a nice thing, that you don't need to lie there and try and empty your head or do anything like that. The body just does it for you.
Yeah. And in terms of mental health, you discuss a bit, but like, of course, many people suffer from depression, from anxiety, from PTSD. How Bowen helps? How does it help?
Yes, again, that switch from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic is really good for anxiety, trauma, stress. As I'm sure you understand, when an animal has a trauma, when it's sort of attacked and escapes or has an injury, they tend to go to a dark place and they shake and they
shake it off.
Yeah, they shake it off. They release all of that cortisol and all of that adrenaline, and they process. Whereas humans, we have a trauma or an accident or a bereavement or whatever, and we keep moving. We keep going to work. We keep getting up.
That's what I'm saying. Yes,
and we suppress it all. And that's stored within our body, within our tissues, and you can't suppress it forever. And so a lot of people just cope and cope and cope.
Yep.
And eventually, people will come to me and say, I'm suddenly having a panic attack. I'm suddenly having, I can't sleep. I'm having this huge anxiety. I'm depressed, but everything's fine. No, everything's fine at home. And I said, but have you been
Let's
through
look
trauma?
at what happened in the past.
And they say, oh yeah, my mother died, and I lost my job and I changed home, but that was last year. And you say, yeah, but your body got you through that because your body's designed to get you through those emergency situations. You can't stop. You have to keep moving, but you have to deal with you have to deal with it at some stage, and it will catch up to you. And that's when everything's kind of plain sailing. That's when people's mental health tends to struggle, because the body goes, okay, now we're going to deal with this. And either you consciously try to deal with it, or your body will decide for you, now we deal with it.
Absolutely. And I really hope, like, one of the main reasons why I'm doing this podcast and why I created the Healing Hub is so that people don't have to go to these points, to really try to listen to your body and mind before you actually crash. So we have heard a lot of stories. Sometimes when you crash, it's a life-changing in a good or in a bad way. Sometimes you crash and you really get into serious illnesses that you cannot recover. Sometimes you have a crash and you recover. That's what I want for everybody. But like, as much as everybody can, do not allow your body and mind to really, have to put this red flag of like, stop now.
Like every light flashing on the dashboard in the car.
Yeah. And you see it a lot. See it a lot.
Yeah.
And then we keep going.
And they self-medicate. People drink and they smoke and they might do drugs, or they might prescription medication, throw themselves into exercise is a good thing, but kind of become compulsive exercise. So they have coping mechanisms, but Bowen is beautiful because it just allows that, even if it's just that hour a week or that hour a month, just allowing that body to switch off, to deal with what it needs to deal with. And we can store our trauma. Some people think this part's mumbo jumbo, but people store trauma in different parts of their body and store stress and anxiety. Some people carry their stress in their shoulders.
Absolutely.
Others, it will be their jaw.
Yeah.
Others, it could be even their backside. They clench their bum. It can be a different area of tension where you're storing that tension. And by releasing that area, you're releasing that tension and that stress.
But that's what I say, like, every emotion it goes to a specific part of the brain, and this specific part of the brain is connected to a specific part of your body. So that's when you are thinking or feeling the same way for a long time, it has this reflection on the physical body. That's how we create illnesses, right? But that's what I believe that happens. That's how you store it, you feel it, you keep it there, okay? You learn how to live with it every day. And then one day, boom, oh my God, I got like, my back doesn't move anymore. All right.
Yeah.
Let's rewind. Let's go back and see what happened. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like to say that everything is an emotional injury, because I think that's taking it to extreme. Because if you've had a lifetime of swimming and now your shoulder's blown out, well, it's probably the swimming. But
yeah.
But there's a lot of things are a combination of different things. So that's why holistic therapies are great, because we're tackling the physiological, what we can see, the presentation of the injury that we can see, and we're doing the hands-on, helping the muscle relax, releasing that tension, and also it's tackling the emotional, the spiritual, the whole package.
So Genevieve, what would you tell to a skeptical or somebody who doesn't really believe, or is a bit like, I'm not sure about this holistic therapies?
I think, for Bowen, there's actually a lot of evidence out there. I've got links for different research projects that have been done. Some as things as simple as hamstring flexibility, pre-post treatments. So there is research that backs up what we do. If you learn about how the process works, there's more in-depth scientific explanation. It stands up. It's not something that takes a leap of faith. If you have an analytical or inquisitive mind, you'll find out the rationale behind what we do. And I would just say, if you wanted to learn about it in advance, I can send you any amount of information you require. And then just try it with an open mind. And don't go into it trying to prove it wrong. Although that happens, and we still get great results. Sometimes that's the most rewarding, isn't it? When you have people,
exactly.
Someone sends their husband, and this guy really doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And then they're pleasantly surprised. So, but I think come in and give it the time it requires. You do get the people that will come and literally want a miracle. You know, they'll be suffering from a chronic condition for 10, 15, 20 years. And unless you fix them in that 45-minute session, it's rubbish.
Yeah.
Not often, but, you know, you do get those clients.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm not Jesus. No Bowen therapist is. We cannot... sometimes you get amazing results within one session. But you know, if you've taken 20 years to get here, we're probably going to take a couple of sessions, you know,
Of
if
course.
not more,
That's what I'm saying.
to get
peel
you
it
out
off.
of it.
Yeah.
And give it time. Sometimes the first session, you know, you won't even feel anything. You might, but things are going on, but you know, you might not have that connection to know.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it might take the second session or the third session for it to really click. So I'd just give it a chance. You know,
Yeah.
people are familiar with physiotherapy. They're familiar with chiropractic, and that seems safe, and that seems something that they can tangibly understand. And then they put Bowen in this other bucket where it's like, oh, it's kind of woo-woo.
It's not that known. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not known, but I hope that one day will come a time when Bowen is the first port of call and not the
But
last.
that's why we are here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, of course, I wanted to thank you for being here. This is very, very important for me and for the platform. And please, if you can tell everybody where they can find you. Of course, you are doing sessions in Dubai at the moment for horses and for people, but we will tap into the Bowen for horses in another episode, because it really needs one episode for it. But yeah, where people can find you.
So my website is Dubai Bowen Therapy. Same for my Instagram, same for my Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. My equine page is Equine Bowen Dubai. And again, Instagram, Facebook. And my animal Bowen, because I also treat small animals, or animals of any size actually.
Yes.
Is Animal Bowen Therapy UAE. So yeah, all three.
Perfect. Just as a little teaser, which animals can you treat? Apart from horses?
Any with any mammal really, anything with a spinal cord and a brain you can treat, which you can palpate. So I do a lot of dogs and cats here, but there really isn't any restriction, you know.
Yeah, amazing. We will get to know more in the next episode with you. So anything else you would like to say?
I don't think so, but it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
And anyone that has any interest in the therapy, in either learning it or experiencing it, then just get in touch.
Yeah, thank you, and let's keep helping people change for better.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.